MSCI. It was a $22 billion deal in 1996.
Adjusted for inflation?
Exactly. They did get to the finish line on this one, Bill. Not without, of course, a lot of talking going on between both Disney and Fox, and also our parent company Comcast and Fox. And that's sort of where we want to begin today as we sort of head towards the later parts of the day and advance the story a bit, because Comcast did compete vigorously for these assets, and people close to the company indicate, or people close to all the companies involved, that being the people who are advising and so forth, indicate that the bid from Comcast, in fact, did have a higher value than what Fox accepted from Disney. We all know our parent company fairly well here. Brian Roberts, of course, somebody I followed both as when I've been working as a part of this company, but long before Comcast owned NBC Universal, is a very aggressive gentleman who has created a great deal of value through doing deals. And certainly was focused on the international assets in particular that were being offered by Fox as a real opportunity for Comcast to grow in an area that it does not have a lot of exposure in. But on the Fox side, Rupert Murdoch and his board of directors seem more focused on a Disney deal for a variety of reasons, including simply a preference for that Disney paper. Remember, both companies were going to offer a full stock deal. The Disney deal, of course, is all in stock, as we told you it would be. And so they went with that deal. And in fact, for weeks now, we've been reporting that while Comcast was still trying to be aggressive, the focus for Fox and its advisors was on getting a Disney deal done. I'll come back to some of the other reasons. But earlier we did talk to Bob Iger, the company's chairman and CEO at Disney, who also explained perhaps why Disney would have been favored, while also admitting there is always the possibility that a Comcast or another company could try to still seek the assets.
When you enter into an agreement like this, you have to have your eyes wide open to all kinds of possibilities, whether it's the regulatory risk or the risk of getting topped. I think you have to look at what's best for the shareholders of the companies. We're convinced that this is certainly good for the shareholders of Disney, but if you're a shareholder of 21st Century Fox and you can suddenly own currency that combines Disney and all of its assets and its reach and its heritage and the quality of its brands, and the 21st century assets, particularly the international side, but also the intellectual property and the people, you end up with something I think is very, very compelling as an investment to create long-term value.
And that was a focus, of course, for Rupert Murdoch, his trusts, his children who will be owning this stock, and all the Fox shareholders. 25% of the new Disney will be owned by current Fox shareholders, not an insignificant sum. Antitrust was also a concern, though, as to why it favored a Disney deal. Comcast, certainly it would be a vertical integration. We all know where that is right now with the DOJ when it comes to Time Warner and AT&T. And in the past, Fox had made known its opposition to that deal in certain areas and to Comcast's own acquisition of NBC Universal. There was a fear that that certainly could be used against it were it to have tried to do a deal with Comcast. None of which is to say that Comcast won't try to continue to figure out points of leverage as to whether it can somehow get something here. The strategy of hanging around the hoop has worked in the past for the company, although it does seem unlikely to imagine a deal in which it would simply make a public offer in a sort of unsolicited manner, trying to upset the vote of Fox and Disney shareholders. Remember, the Murdochs control roughly 37% of the vote, but in this deal, it's only their economics, which is about 17%, that they would be able to actually vote. So not inconceivable where you have another offer far higher that shareholders would say no, though that is a tough thing to do, Bill. More likely that Comcast perhaps considers a way to cause trouble by making a bid for the 61% of Sky that Fox is currently trying to buy, or making a difficult partner in the likes of Hulu. We don't know, but it's certainly worth at least keeping an eye on as this unfolds into 2018. Nothing's going to happen for the rest of this year.
Bob Iger's eyes are wide open, yes.
Yes.
Kelly has a question for you, Kel.
Yeah, I appreciate that, David. Precisely to what you were just saying, I don't know if this is an antitrust issue, but I thought that this deal was valuing Fox around $40 a share, so why are they trading below 35?
Well, it's going to take some time, and there's certainly some question as to the overall value of Fox itself. Remember, this deal, the 515 million shares that are being exchanged for Fox are worth roughly, right now, based on Disney, about $29. Then you want to make a decision as to what you think the remaining Fox assets, what we're calling the SpinCo, will be worth, Kelly. $2.8 billion in EBITDA. You can put a multiple on it. You can assume some sort of a growth rate there. By the way, I'm hearing that they may have a significant dividend. The company will have less debt on it because they are getting rid of $14 billion of debt. They will be taking on a certain amount of debt to pay the tax bill here, but they can do that over 7 years. They're stepping up their basis. But that's why. And also a year. It's going to be a year at least before you see anything, given how long these regulatory processes take, Kelly.
Before you go, you and I are both parents. When our children come to us and they ask us to do something or they want something that we're not sure we want, we say, we'll think about it, we'll talk about it. I was intrigued that Disney is saying on the succession issue with James Murdoch, the role he'll play in the whole transition period, what role he'll play beyond that. Disney said, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, Mr. Iger, in our interview earlier today, Bill sort of indicated certainly James will play a role in the integration. He has great knowledge of those international assets in particular, but very much unclear whether he will take some sort of a place permanently at Disney itself once this deal is done. Interestingly, none of the Murdochs have a place on Disney's board, despite what will be obviously very significant ownership, both by the family and by the share owners of 21st Century Fox. But it's unclear what happens with James. He was one of the engineers behind this, certainly also embraced the idea that, you know what, we may simply not be big enough to compete with the scale we want to at 21st Century Fox. But I would agree, it's unclear what his future will be. Though again, Murdoch was motivated both by understanding the changing world, but also wanting to deal with some of the struggles within his family, between the two brothers and between himself and James as well.
Very interesting. Great stuff as always, David.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Bill.
See you later. Kelly?